Hello and welcome to Olivia's Catastrophe. I'm Olivia and today I'm here to give you my September wrap-up video. It's been a while since I've made a video, so this one is a long time in coming, but I will definitely explain the reason why in my life update. So let's get right onto that. So the beginning of the month of September I was creating content like crazy, bookstagram photos, book videos, book blog posts. I have so much to post because I've just been creating. I have to edit, sort through, get it up, so that's all the things that I have to work on still. I went back to the primary school to work as a teaching assistant only for 2 days, and then I did some, teaching assistant work that you can do from home, at home, because, everybody was already off at uni, but my uni started late. I didn't really have many people to hang out with, so I was like, why not do a bit more work, save a bit more money? So it was great to be back with the kids. I was back with kids who I'd had in nursery but had moved up to group 1, and it was just so nice to see them again. Some remembered me, which was super sweet, and I really enjoyed my time working with them. Then I went up to the north of the Netherlands to Groningen, where my best friend is studying uni there, and we had a weekend together and it was so great. I got to discover this small little quaint town which was absolutely beautiful and wonderful. I did buy some books there as well. I don't know if I can do a book haul or not because I couldn't bring all the books here with me to uni. That's why this background is different as well, but that's coming a bit later. I had a Disney movie marathon with my friend, but it didn't really turn into much of a marathon because we only watched 2 Disney movies, and then we also watched My Neighbor Totoro, I believe that's what it's called, and I absolutely love that movie. It was so cute. It was my first time seeing it. Then it was time to say my goodbyes. I had my last day goodbye with my family, which was super sweet. I said my goodbye speech at my church, which I've grown up in for the past 13 years, and I was super emotional before I had to make my speech, and then I went up there and I burst into tears, and it was super embarrassing for me, but everybody said it was super heartfelt, but tears all over the place in front of a congregation of like 250 people. Then I went shopping for stuff for uni. I think I bought out the kitchen section of a shop. I got new shoes, got new clothes. I was uni ready, and then I drove down to London, spent a night with my sisters in September, and then I came to the University of Warwick here in Coventry, England, a different country from the Netherlands. Totally a big change, even though I'm from England. And now I live in student halls, so if I talk a bit quiet in my video, it's just because I am so aware now of the fact that I've got people living right next to me and right next to me on the other side, and I don't really know them well enough for them to know I'm making videos yet, but if they hear it, I guess they know what I'm doing in the middle of the day. Anyway, so that is my life update. Now let's get onto the books, because for the most of September I was at home alone, and I had so much reading time. I basically read all of the books, so prepare for this to be a long wrap-up. I read 14 books, which, is great for me because my usual average is about 6 books, and 14 is over double that, so yes, I am happy. Let's get started with the books. So the first book that I read was Illegal Contact by Santino Hassel. This is a new book of his. I'm always rereading his books, but this was a new one. It is in the Baron series, the first book, and it's about footballers, and there's this footballer who needs a personal assistant because he's on house arrest, and he needs someone who can do all the stuff that he can't do while he's on house arrest. He hires Noah, and from there on things happen, but he's also a football player, so of course he's not really allowed to be gay and be out while on a team, and that also causes a lot of tension. So you get the gist of what this book was about, and everybody told me when I read it was going to be my new favourite Santino Hassel, and I was really nervous about that because I have favourites of Santino Hassel, I don't want replacements. It didn't turn out to be a favourite of mine, but it was still, as a classic Santino Hassel novel is, very, very good. Then the next book that I went on to read was The Last of the Fire Drakes by Farah Umbahoy. You've probably seen this in a lot of wrap-ups, and I'm either reading it or in the middle of it, and I finally finished it. This one is about a girl who is the chosen one. She gets sucked into this fantasy world where she happens to be the long-lost descendant of the throne, but there is an evil queen, Morgana, on the throne, and she has to overthrow her, but first she has to get grips of all of her magic powers and all of that kind of thing, and there's also this really mysterious dark knight involved. So you get the gist of this book. It's a bit of a stereotypical fantasy young adult novel. It was alright, it wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, it was just kind of another fantasy one that probably won't be that memorable for me, but I did enjoy it enough while I read it. I've got a full review that will come soon as I edit some of these videos I've taken. Then the next thing that I read was Aching Buttons by Mary Stone Dockery, and this is a little chapbook of poetry. I hadn't heard of the poet Mary Stone Dockery, which was gifted to me by Fee's a Bookaholic on Bookstagram. I'll link her Bookstagram in the descriptor below. But yes, this was a great poetry collection. I absolutely fell in love with her writing style as soon as I read it. I drank this. I drank her poetry in, and I just think it was so my type of poetry. It had good rhythm, it had a beautiful imagery, and it had a lot of meaning. And you guys, if you like poetry, if you like the really good type of poetry that's modern, but it still has some of the traditional elements to it, and that is just beautiful, I really recommend Aching Buttons. Okay, after that, the next book that I read was Get the Hell Over It by Sarah Beth Moore, but I already have a book review on my channel all about this, and a book review on my blog. I'll leave links to those in the descriptor below, so you can either watch the review or read the review on my blog. Yes. Yes. Okay, then the next book that I read is Corrupting Chris by Santina Hassel. This was, I don't know if it still is, a freebie that you could read if you signed up for his newsletter. As soon as I knew that was all I had to do, I literally signed up there. He tweeted like 5 seconds ago, like on my phone it said 5 seconds ago, Santina Hassel tweeted, "Hey, if you sign up for my newsletter, I'll give you this free expert just released now." And then 2 minutes later, I had it on my Kindle and was reading it. It's literally just a 5-minute read. It's about a scene that is mentioned in Sunset Park by him, one of his novels, and it was just a really quick little scene. I absolutely adored it. Like, I had to adore it because I'd always wondered how things had gone down in that scene, so it was really nice to read about it. Then the next book I read was The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I borrowed a copy of that from my friend, so I can't show it to you here. Picture somewhere over there, but it was a really I can't really say much about it because I had really mixed feelings, so just bear with me, you guys. I will have my video review of that up soon as well, as soon as I get organised in life. And this one is about, you know, in America there was something called the Underground Railroad during slavery times, which were underground tunnels that helped slaves escape, but in this book it's actually a literal railroad, an underground railroad that helps slavery escapes, and we follow the storyline of Cora, and as she travels through America and takes this railroad to different places, what happens to her. That's the gist of the story. Then the next book I finished was Mythology of Touch by Mary Stone Dockery. This is a bit of a thicker poetry collection by Mary Stone Dockery, and it's more themed than Aching Buttons is, and oh my goodness, it's just as great as Aching Buttons is. I really need to find more of Mary Stone Dockery's work because it's absolutely beautiful. It speaks to my soul, and this one especially mattered to me because it was about death and love, and those are two things that really resound a lot with me, so I was really able to relate to the poetry, and I will have a review of this one coming as soon as I write one and take photos and video and do all the stuff that you need to, because people need to hear about this poetry collection. Then the next book I finished was The Lonely Londoners by Sam Selvon. This is one I'm going to have to study in my university course later on, which is the reason why I read it and why, you know, it's not like me to write in my books, but if it's an academia book I do write in it, so I also mark all the things that I've read about, so that's why it's also nice and colourful. But The Lonely Londoners is like I recommend even if you're not going to be studying it at uni, because it's especially relevant these days with the whole theme of Brexit going on, and also the whole theme of immigrants and whether they should be allowed into Europe or not, because this one is about the movement in the 1950s, I believe, where loads of people from the Caribbean, especially Jamaica, were coming through to Britain to live, settle down and work, and this one is all about Moses and all the people that Moses knows who are in that situation, and it really centres on the Caribbeans who have come to England and how they find the situation, if it lives up to their expectations, the animosity that they're feeling from the other British citizens who are like, why are you in our country, why are you taking all the jobs? Because believe it or not, what happened then is currently what is happening now. Everybody was like, the country's getting too populated, they're taking our jobs, and that's basically essentially what's happening now. And that's why I find this one is so relevant for people to read. The Lonely Londoners by Sam Salvo, you definitely should read it. And as you can tell, I have a lot of thoughts, so I'm thinking about doing a review for this one too. What did I read next? Okay, then after that I read Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I had wanted to read this book for literally ever, and I never got the chance to buy it, and I'm not buying books right now because of university, student life, but I have a primary school librarian who is the dearest friend to me, and she is so sweet. She gifted me a Kindle copy so that I could finally read it. I read it and it spoke to me and it made me want to cry because it's just a story that not many people know, and I'll tell you what it's about. It's based on the history of a ship, and this ship was the biggest marine disaster in history, set during World War II, the biggest marine disaster in history, and yet barely anyone knows it in comparison to stories such as the Titanic, which is a really big, of course, marine disaster as well, but this one is the biggest in history, and it was a lot of, refugees, poor people who were trying to escape the terrors of World War II, and they were on that boat to escape, and they are the ones who drowned and sank. So this one follows 4 main characters, and you just get to see their stories, how they weave together, and how they disperse, and how it relates to them all trying to get onto this boat so that they can get to ultimate safety. It is an emotional read. Don't think, if you're someone who cries when you read, don't think you're going to be able to get through this book without a couple of shed tears. After that, I needed a bit of a pick-me-up, so I started to read, and I quickly finished reading Stars Above by Marissa Meyer. I wanted to read this one for ages because I absolutely love the Lunar Chronicles. I was a bit disappointed when I read it, I have to admit, because I thought it was going to be only set short stories after the events of Winter, after the events of the main series, but most of the short stories were sent before, and even though it was still very, very good, and was very, very good insight to the characters and how it relates to the main story, I still was really, really bummed out that we did get more from after the series was set. There were also a couple of, short stories thrown in that were just set in the Lunar Chronicle world but weren't related to the main characters. But the last story is a wedding story. I'm not going to tell you whose wedding it is, but if you know me, then maybe this is a bit of a spoiler because you'll know who my favourite couple is, but my favourite couple are the ones who get married, and that just made my heart happy because, when your OTP is a thing, how can you not get hyped? And that was just super sweet, so I was super happy about that. And after that, I read another book for uni, again, hence the colourful, colourful things, and this one is called The Life of Olada Iquiano, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and it's basically a true self-written biography, so an autobiography, there's a word for that, an autobiography by this guy who was a slave. He was kidnapped from his home in Africa, and then he was brought to England, he was made a slave, he went to America, and all the things that he did to buy his freedom and eventually start campaigning for the freedom of slavery in Britain. This one is set in the, oh gosh, I don't quite remember when it's set, but I believe it's 1814, round about that time. So you can see that this is a really, really old story. I was afraid the writing style was going to be beyond my comprehension and I was really going to struggle with it, but it was a very easy, straightforward writing style. I'm surprised by how much the 1800s the writing style is actually readable when I read books. He does do a lot of sailing, and that was quite boring for me to read because I can't relate to sailors. I'm not a sailing person. Seasickness, fear of large embodiments of water where I'm going to drown. So I couldn't really relate that much to him, and I feel like the depiction of slavery wasn't very central. It was more about his relation to slavery rather than how slavery affected a lot of people and the masses and a general thing. But that makes sense because it's actually his life story. So while it was essential, I did have some problems with reading it that made it not really my type of read, but I had to read all of it because I'm studying it. Okay, so then after that I decided to reread a book that I've read recently, and that was How to Bang a Billionaire by Alex S. Hall. We won't talk about it because I've already recently talked about it in a wrap-up. I just wanted something easy, quick to get through after reading that heavy study book, and I continued on with that, so I reread Hardwired by Santina Hassel and Megan Erickson. Again, won't talk about that, talked about it quite a lot recently. And then the last book I read was Dress Codes to Small Towns by Courtney Stevens. This was a book I received for review, and I do need to and will post a review of that here on this channel because I have quite a lot of mixy thoughts on this one. It was hard for me because I was very curious about how they were going to take religion in this book. It's about a small town called Otter's Holt, I believe, and they have their customs, their way of doing things, and this is the daughter of the preacher, and she's kind of just going through, teenagerhood. That's the main focus of this book. She's going through teenagerhood, she's trying new things, she's having problems with how her religion fits into everything, but she does strongly believe in God, and it's just a lot of things, It was just a contemporary book with, she's trying to get through teenagerhood, figure things out for herself. Because I'm really looking for a book which has a that is not Christian fiction, that doesn't fall under the genre of Christian fiction, but has a good portrayal of teenagers who are Christian and who believe in Christian values. I'm really looking for a book like that. I really haven't found one yet. If you know one, please recommend it to me in the comment section. But not one that's Christian fiction. And I got the vibe that this wasn't a Christian fiction, but I wanted to see how they were going to handle the Christianity side to things in this book. So I have a lot of thoughts on how they did that, how they fit that into modern day values as well, and I think I need to do a review to really discuss that, so that's what I'm going to say now. So those were the 14 books that I read. Thank you if you bared with me for as long as you have. And as for a TBR, I don't think I'm going to set one here. I am currently reading A School for Unusual Girls by Catherine Baldwin. I'm reading a physical copy, I'm just too lazy to get it, so here's a picture. But I want to finish that this month, and I've got a couple of books I have to read for uni this month, so I will definitely be finishing those, but I'm not going to set a TBR because we'll just see how it goes. It's halfway through October already, almost, and I've been in the most massive reading and content creating slump, hence why this video is coming to you late, but more on that when I do a wrap up of this month. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, hit that notification bell if you want to be updated every time I have a new video. In the comment section below, please tell me how your month of September went, what your favourite book was that you read, and what you are planning to read in the month of October. You can cheat and tell me a book you've already finished in October, seeing as we're so far into the month. And I'll see you next time with another video. Goodbye.